Announcing a special offer from the International Hospitality Institute. From now until December 9th, 2021, IHI is offering a 20% discount to attendees at GHS who are not already members. Individual, corporate, and allied memberships are available. To join, visit internationalhospitalityinstitute.com, click on Membership, and enter GHS20 at checkout. There is no better time than now to take advantage of IHI's membership benefits. Come join IHI's global community.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Oh,
Hi there. Can you hear me? Perfect.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay.
I think we're just waiting for our moderator.
She was having trouble getting on Zoom. She sent a little email.
Oh, she did. Okay. Have you all been watching the sessions from the summit?
No, unfortunately, I've been teaching.
Yeah. I've caught a lot of them. I mean, really a lot of similar themes. A lot of talk about labor shortage and values and things like that, which we're going to discuss as well. So we're on trend.
Oh, well, it looks like Andrew's having some trouble joining. So they suggested that we just get started. So I guess I think there was an order of events. I don't remember who was going to go first. I think maybe it was.
I think Bruce was first.
I think it was Bruce. Yes.
Bruce, would you like to start?
Bruce, you're on mute.
Is he paused?
I think he's frozen.
Yes,
now.
he is.
I think he's frozen. Well, Philip, you want to start? I can kind of fill in on the moderating. I guess we're doing strength 10. Have we started? Do you know?
Oh, there's
here's
Andrea.
Andrea. Okay, phew.
Very good. Right on time.
The brain trust.
Hi there. Hi, it's Andrea Stokes. I'm so sorry. I am on my phone. I cannot get on Zoom for some reason with my laptop today. But thanks everyone for joining us. Do we have everyone here for the session?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, I think Bruce just dropped off by accident.
Oh no, we're all having difficulties. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I am sorry I'm not on screen, but very glad everyone else is on screen. I'm Andrea Stokes. I am the hospitality practice lead at JD Power. We conduct, of course, the voice of the customer surveys for many, many industries, including hospitality and travel. With me today, I will wait to introduce Bruce, so hopefully he can get back on. But today we've got Lilly Jan. She is she's a professor at Cornell University. She's a recognized expert in food and beverage, and she's taught at Cornell since 2019. Prior to that, she was a chef instructor at Boston University and at Newbury College. We also have Emily Goldfischer. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of Herterlier, an online media platform that inspires women in hospitality to pursue, navigate, and nurture their careers at every stage. We also have Filip Boyen. Filip, hopefully you're on. I can't see you right now, but I think you're there.
I am right here.
There he is. He is the Chief Executive Officer at Forbes Travel Guide. And he has a career spanning more than 3 decades in hospitality, everywhere from Bora Bora to Moscow to Peru. And he has led Forbes Travel Guide for several years. And before that, he was the CEO of a small luxury hotels of the world. So, and then do we have Bruce yet?
Yeah.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks so much for joining us. So we've got Bruce Ford as well. He's the Senior Vice President at Lodging Econometrics, and he has collaborated with most of Lodging Econometrics' global client base across all sectors of the hospitality industry. And he is currently the Global Business Development Director at Lodging Econometrics. So thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We have got a great panel today to talk a little bit about hospitality trends and statistics. So I've been able to watch many sessions of the conference yesterday and today, and we've got a lot of discussion and ongoing sort of discussion around trends. What's our new normal look like? You know, how can we move forward, right? And what should we be doing now to help bring back the markets that we're looking for? So I'm going to start out and pass it over to Bruce Ford. He's got some great statistics for us. He's going to kind of give us an outlook, which is great. And I'll ask some questions throughout the session. And as we go. So Bruce Ford, passing it on to you.
Thank you very much. It is wonderful to be with everybody today on this beautiful Wednesday. Appreciate the invitation to join you all today. I wanted to talk a little bit about hospitality real estate, both sentiments and kind of some of the trends that are happening around the world. I get a total of 8.38 minutes, so I'm going to go quick, okay? But if anyone is interested in any more detail about what I talk about today, I'm happy to share at any time. Currently around the world, we're experiencing what I'm going to call a little bit of an uneven beginning to the recovery. So I thought I would take a moment to talk a little bit about hotel owners and management companies, and then a little bit about franchise companies into what we're seeing right now. So owners and management companies saw a pretty quick effect to the downturn in 2020. Many of them thought about downsizing their hotel, perhaps closing some of their hotel, perhaps closing per permanent time frame, and laying off and furloughing employees. And as we got to the fall and winter, they recognized that, again, we were still seeing the same effects on travel. The only really kind of hotel brands or hotel chain scales and segments that were a little bit less affected were perhaps be the economy and the mid-scale products that were on the roadside. But the downtown hotels, the major airport hotels, the convention center hotels saw a pretty swift and dramatic effect to the downturn. In spring of 21, we began to see hope. We had vaccines. We had gotten through the presidential election in America. And at that time, we began to see some hope that in 2021, we would see the beginnings of return to travel. And I'm here to tell you that we definitely have begun to see the beginnings of the return to travel. And the owners and management companies are heartened. And I can say that they are heartened just simply by the activity that they've put into the marketplace. Between July 1st and October 31st, Lodging Econometrics is reporting that there have been more hotel transactions in the United States in those 4 months than there were in the 15 previous months combined. That tells you that owners and management company sentiments, that acquisition company sentiments are in fact in a lodging recovery, and that we will begin to see that recovery take hold throughout America and then throughout the rest of the world. We'll talk a little bit about how that trends across the rest of the world as we proceed through the presentation. But let's talk a little bit about franchise companies, and particularly those large franchise company operators. As their swift action was very quick. Marriott runs about 3 times more hotels across the world than any of the other franchise companies, and their impact was quick in January and February of 2020. And they recoiled backwards, furloughed quite a few employees, really downshifted their operations at their existing hotels. But by the time we got to spring of 21, they started to say, and even really in the late fall and early winter of 2020, they started to say, if any of our hotels need to be renovated, we want to get that going right now. we want to get those orders in first. And they, in fact, as I visited the Marriott Marquis in New York this week, fully renovated and already done. So that's a great step forward for the industry as they took that aggressive stance on their own managed hotel renovations, as they continue to do quite a few of them across the world. We have more than 45 Marriott managed hotels under renovation in the LE database today. What we're seeing also throughout the summer and fall is that demand for group has not turned out to be great in the fall of 2021. Although it will begin to pick up, it's really kind of more of a second quarter 2022 discussion right now for really the return for group demand. I've attended 5 conferences in the hotel business so far since mid-July, and I'll do another one this weekend. But several of them are still going virtual, if not canceling and postponing out to 2022. And we're in the hospitality business. So my sense is that the return to group demand and the return to group conferences is really probably pushed out about 6 more months. So what that's going to do is have those franchise companies converted over to thinking about conversions to find new locations, because they have about 6 months to potentially capitalize on that. And we have seen an uptick in conversions. We have 760 active conversions of brands that are changing flags in the United States right now, which is not a historically huge number, but it is significant, and adding activity to the pipeline. But the franchise companies are going to be cautious as they add workforce back. They're certainly looking for that workforce at the property level, but they're not as much looking for that workforce for the non-revenue positions at the corporate office. Still a little bit hesitant to bring many of those departments back. Travel signals out there right now, the United States running about 75 to 80% of long-term averages, comparing ourselves to 2019 for check-ins at the TSA. It's great news that as of yesterday, international travel back into America for vaccinated people is allowed again for a group of about 35 countries. That's going to be great news. We had friends that immediately came to America. They haven't been here in almost 2 years, so really great news for that. That will slowly ramp up, and the airlines are reporting bookings are tremendously high for people looking to come to the United States as soon as they possibly can. Room night demand still remains a little stagnant in the major urban markets. Rates are pretty good. So if you haven't visited a city and you're looking to do that, good values out there probably for holiday travel. Resort destinations and drive-to locations that have resort amenities are still going to do very well this fall and winter, especially if we get a good snow season. And that's pretty exciting for them, as they've seen some of the best years they've ever had in operating performance. And again, a highlight for the economy and the mid-scale chain scales doing pretty well as well, and continuing to. An extended stay, which we could continue on for another half an hour, also doing very well. Currently has 25% of the rooms in the pipeline in the United States are extended stay brands. This is our global construction pipeline, as we're currently through publishing almost all the way around the world at this point. We're showing just over 1.14 million guest rooms currently under construction across the world. We are going to follow along with the global standards for chain scales. So the unbranded properties, which we do classify a like-type chain scale for the unbranded hotels in the pipeline, that is part of this perspective. So a courtyard is always a courtyard across anywhere in the world, always an upscale hotel. Full-service Marriott, always an upper upscale hotel. The center column is the total pipeline. So this aggregates the 3 active pipeline stages that we talk about here at Lodging Econometrics. So rooms that are physically under construction going up, those that are scheduled to begin construction in the next 12 months, and then those that are announced, verified, but more than a year from construction start, which would be called early planning. Those 3 active pipeline project stages comprise 2.25 million new construction guest rooms across the world. The openings for this year, about 415,000 rooms that will open this year. We will open more rooms than we will announce this year. So there will be a gradual depletion of the new construction pipeline, because we're not announcing enough projects to fend off the amount of openings that are occurring. And many of those openings have been delayed as a result of the pandemic and as a result of labor difficulties, if you will. So those have continued to come back into the pipeline and continue to aggressively open. A quick look at the renovation and conversion pipeline as we see it right now. We aggregate together renovations and conversions because we want to talk about them in the same way. Conversions are 9 times out of 10 also a renovation. So this will give you a feel for where that activity is. Fairly significant in the upper upscale market as these hotels are actively renovating to get ready for the return of hospitality demand, again, which we are anticipating to begin in earnest in the second quarter of 2022. Still a pretty long road towards really recovery and return to 2019. I would remind everybody on the phone that although 2018 and 2019 were good years in the hospitality industry, we were absolutely setting hospitality operating performance records that had never been seen before in the history of the industry. So to get back to those records, it's going to take a little while. Even though we have gone through the pandemic, okay, it's still going to take a little bit while to ramp that back up with companies interested in having global conferences again. So a couple of highlights for 2022. New construction cancellation rate has inched up a little bit because owners and management companies have been forced to decide if they want to keep that project in their portfolio and actively pursue it, or if they'd like to let it go. The franchise companies are actively seeking to find those best markets that they have and to get developers into them or get owners and management companies in to convert those opportunities. Most owners and management companies are shifting to about 80% investment in their portfolio, their existing portfolio. So lots of CapEx, lots of reimagining hotels, both at the food and beverage level and the guest room experience, creating more touchless environments. About 20% of their spending will be on new construction. And we're getting ready to get ready. It's really kind of the term that I like to use to help everybody understand kind of where we are. And getting started again in the second quarter of 2022, I think, will be where we will be able to measure that. We're anticipating renovations and conversions to be really at all-time records, both this year, next year, and the year after, as the existing supply needs to continue to renovate to go forward. And if we can continue on this path of refinancing hotel properties in 2021 and 2022, again, this would be one bowling pin on the alley, if you will, of several. And if that continued and we, in fact, put the pandemic behind us with vaccination rates, maybe by the end of 2023, we might begin to see 2018 operating levels. So I appreciate the opportunity again. I'll hand it back to my other panelists to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Very much appreciate that. Hopefully everyone can see me. So sorry, again, I'm on my phone. But Bruce, quick question for you, and then we'll pass it on to Filip. So you talked about renovations. What do those look like for, upper upscale and luxury hotels? Is it just updating, or are there changes going on in sort of how these properties are being renovated in terms of types of rooms or common areas? What does that look like?
I think the refreshment of public spaces, I think, is really a big part of what people are trying to do. I think the guest rooms, I think you'll see a soft good renovation, some things that they can do. Furniture is still very challenged to get into America. As you know, quite a bit of it is manufactured overseas, and that's still going to be a waiting game. But I think some of the soft good renovations, also carpeting, also, the public space fit and feel, and of course, food and beverage is also at the top of everybody's list too. So upper upscale and luxury have a good portion of the renovation pipeline comparatively to their existing supply. And I would say the U.S. is fast approaching a record level, and Europe will be next, followed by Asia Pacific sometime in late 2022.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I'm going to pass it over to Filip to kind of continue the conversation around luxury and the luxury space in hospitality, upper upscale somewhat as well. But, there's there's a lot of competition with, home rentals like Airbnb, especially at that kind of higher price point, sort of luxury properties, or at least, very, very nice home rentals. So maybe comment on that, Filip, if you can, and also maybe talk about kind of what you're seeing with the hotels that you work with.
Thank you, Andrea. And first of all, I'm delighted to be a part of the Global Hospitality Summit. So what we are seeing is, especially in the leisure segment, both in the US and in Europe, that average daily rates are considerably higher than in 2019. And by higher, I mean anywhere between 20 and 50%. And many resort hotels and country house hotels here in the UK have actually reported their best results ever. So I think Airbnb is in their own space. Luxury is in its own space. And at Forbes Travel Guide, as you know, we verify luxury. What we are seeing from the guests is that the luxury travelers are not very forgiving. In principle, they want what they pay for, and that is extraordinary service. And COVID, if I look at the scores, and I'll talk about that in a minute, COVID is certainly not an excuse for mediocre or inferior service. Our scores for this year to date, 5-star hotels, Forbes rated, of course, are at 90.6%. So they're 2.6% over the 88% that is required to maintain the 5-star award. The 4-star hotels are at 82.7, which is 2.7% over the 80% required to maintain their rating. And the recommended hotels are at 73.4. So that means 3.4% over the 70% required to maintain. And what we have seen from our guests is they want to feel again. After 18 months of isolations and frustrations, they want to feel safe, secure. They want to be free of stress and anxiety. And they want to enjoy that human connection again, that we all feel. And Bruce just said it. I have been to 4 or 5 in-person events in hospitality, and it's incredibly joyful to be around your old friends and to do business face to face again. But most of all, the guests, they want to feel that they are truly cared for. And I must say, the vast majority of Forbes rated hotels has done that incredibly well, despite all the challenges and despite all the frustrations that COVID has brought. Andrea?
Sorry, you're going off of mute there. So, Filip, I know we before the session, we talked a lot about, what is going on with labor, and what are, maybe if you're seeing anything kind of out there that especially luxury hotels, right? Because luxury hotels, they need a lot of staff, right? That, like you said, the guest wants what they want. They're paying a high rate. They expect a certain level of service. And so what can hotels do? Not so much, I know we there's a lot of talk about how to recruit and how to keep the staff that you have, but what else can hotels do around, kind of keeping staff, right? And that whole retention part of it. What is something that maybe you think might be missing out there that, hotels could really learn from, especially in luxury?
Well, first of all, Andrea, what I want to say is that, of course, we know what happened, and we know why a lot of hospitality staff decided to change direction in their lives. So we won't dwell on that. Let's talk about the future. But one thing I was really surprised and shocked about is that there are companies out there, hospitality companies, that have made the incredible sacrifice of paying their staff full salaries throughout the last 18 months. Some of them even paid them tips, and they find themselves now short of staff. So my question is, what happened to loyalty? But going forward, how do we attract talent at entry and management levels? And that's a big discussion. Do we, first of all, as an industry, do we match the expectations and values of the younger generations? Do we provide fair pay, flexible working hours, sufficient training and opportunities to progress and develop? Do we provide a positive and constructive work environment? Because those seem to be the expectations of the younger generations. Another problem is that we need to clean up our image, and we need to promote and project our industry for what it really is. And that is an exciting, fulfilling, sometimes even glamorous industry full of opportunities. In my opinion, one of the things we should do is reintroduce apprenticeships. And that means recruit the right people at a young age, mold, train, and develop them on the job. Should we focus more on vocational hotel schools to recruit our talent? Because institutes such as Cornell, Lausanne, and Lyon have probably become as much business schools as they are hospitality schools. So those are some of the things we could address. Andrea?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that those are really, really great, great ideas. The idea of apprenticeships, I think, I think too, I wonder if staff or hospitality staff and a lot of the staff that left the industry, hopefully it wasn't because of the customer. You never want to think that people do not want to be in the hospitality industry because, there's been a lot of just negative stories out there about unruly customers, whether it's on an airline or in a hotel, right? And, I hope that right is not scaring people away from the industry. And so I wonder what we could tell the guest, right? How can we have the guest help us, keep the staff that we have, and also recruit new people into the industry?
Well, I think that guest behavior is a very, very small reason why people have changed industries, right?
Sure.
If I look here in the UK, vacancies are at a 20-year high, and not only in hospitality, in many industries, right?
Sure.
Obviously, here we experienced a double whammy, right? Because we had Brexit, so lots of people were told to go back to their countries, and lots of people decided to go back to their countries. And that created, especially in hospitality, a labor shortage, right? But I don't think we should say that guests are unruly. Of course, sometimes they are. But let's not forget that it's our job as hospitality professionals to make sure that that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And if we provide service excellence and we make our clients happy, as we should do, then we don't have these issues with staff, right?
Yeah, very, very good point. I'm going to kind of on this topic of the labor shortage and, how hotels can deal with this and, move forward, try to sort of, get out of the struggle, right? That I think so many hotels in all segments of the hospitality industry, how can we sort of get out of this struggle? And I'm going to pass it to Emily to talk a little bit about kind of what she's hearing from the members of Herterlier, and if anyone is sort of has really creative ideas around what they've done to either recruit staff or retain staff over the past year or so. Emily.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and I'm also really so thrilled to be here with all of you at the Global Hospitality Summit and to discuss these important issues. And like you, Andrea, I've actually been able to watch quite a few of the sessions, and definitely the labor shortage continues to be the big challenge that everyone's faced with. I don't know if you all saw, but this morning, Chip Rogers on his segment about AHLA, he said that 94% of hotels right now in America are understaffed. 96% have open positions, and actually 59%, the housekeeping area is the most crucial. And to your point, that's actually the example I was going to speak about today, because what we're hearing and seeing is that the trend right now is for flexibility in the workplace. We're seeing this, the great, resignation. People have moved to other industries, and as Filip mentioned, in the case of Britain, where I'm based, even though I don't have the accent, that Brexit has basically just devastated the hospitality sector, and they are working on things to change the image of hospitality within the English population. One, before I get into some of the issues around flexibility in the workplace, I would like to mention something called Hoteliers Charter, which we've written about, and it's a movement here to try and change the perception of hospitality in schools. And hotels are partnering up with their local schools to talk to kids and their parents in high school and in universities about careers in hospitality, so that they can expand the pool of people interested in the career. And, as we all know, because we're in the business, of how exciting it is and how you can travel the world and meet people from all over. So, but that was a side note on really what I wanted to speak about today, which was the flexibility. And what we're seeing is the Great Resignation is really turning into a workers' revolution, and companies need to treat people the way that, people have taken this time over the pandemic, particularly in the hotel business, where they were home and not at work, they were furloughed, and they realized, hey, actually, I thought I had balance in my life, but, now I've taken this time to think about what I really value. The work, the child care and the family care, that's another thing that people are really struggling with. And then also education. The cost of it is very difficult in the US and here as well. People, are just trying to get everything organized, and they took this time of the pandemic to realize that their values weren't being met. And what's interesting about that is that, companies now are realize that they have this golden opportunity, and they need to embrace flexibility through new programs and technology. And one of the examples that we reported on was the Grand Hotel in York, which is a 207 five-star hotel. And what they did was they basically took their housekeeping department and they said, you know what, we need more people working. We have to offer the service, as Filip mentioned. The service that people are expecting at a five-star hotel is, housekeeping twice daily and the turn down. And they went and decided, we're going to just let people work when they want to work. And how they did this is they went from a staff of 30 full-time employees to 50 employees. Some are full-time, some are part-time. They said, you don't have to work a 5-day a week. You can work the hours you want to work at the time you want to work. If you want to drop your kids at school and be home for the school run, when they get back, you can come at 10 and work for 4 hours. That's no problem. And how they did this is by using technology. So they've used an app called Indeed Flex, which basically is kind of like an Uber, but for work. So basically when you want to work, you can log on there and see what's available. And the housekeeping director, Lisa Williams, she can post jobs as she needs them on the fly. So for example, everybody knows staycations has been a big deal since, international travel only opened up recently. And she was saying they can get 15 bookings on the day. And, she can go on this app and just say, I need extra workers to come turn 15 rooms that I wasn't expecting. So technology is enabling the flexibility. she did say there is more administration up front to onboard people, but the people that help her with the training, the cleaning supply companies, they all have helped to make this a reality for this hotel. And she's, we're hearing stories across the industry of, general managers having to go back and help in housekeeping, and different managers having to work crazy hours because they don't have the staff. And by doing this, offering shorter shifts, any shifts that people want, she actually said the efficiency happens because guests arrive all day long as well. So now she's got people who are just starting their shift as she has people arriving during the day. So the movement of the employees is now actually mirroring what the guests are doing. So she says there's a lot of efficiency that way. Because housekeeping, particularly, unlike many jobs in the hotel business, are very physically demanding. So, if you have people who've worked an 8-hour shift and towards the end of their shift, suddenly you have 10 rooms, that's really difficult for them to do. So again, there's all these efficiencies now that are able to happen because of technology. And, the added bonus, or maybe this now is the focus post-pandemic, is that the people are happier. They get to earn money and have careers on their own schedule. And they get to have, if they want to have a side hustle or if they want to go to school. And in New York in particular, they have 2 universities there. So she's, been able to allow, kids, people to go to school and work and earn a living. So it's really been tremendous.
Yeah. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I too have heard about some of these very creative things that hoteliers can do or are doing with technology, with the gig, sort of the idea of gig workers and that flexibility. So thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Lilly. Lilly is going to kind of wrap up our session talking about food and beverage. Really kind of on a lighter note, right, of the food and beverage trends that she's seeing, whether it's in restaurants or hotels. So Lilly, please go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy to be able to share some information. I think a lot of conversations around the hotel industry and space has been about a lot labor and things like that. And so it's fun to kind of talk a little bit about trends. Plus, everybody loves talking about food trends. So, I think I got some great data from Technomic and Data Essentials that I wanted to share with everyone. And it's really about the way that consumers are engaging with restaurants these days, and how it's shifted since the pandemic, and what's likely going to continue in the next couple of months, particularly as we look at 2022. I think in one of our earlier conversations, Bruce pointed out, let's not go too far ahead of ourselves, right? Like, let's just look at 2022, because we're still trying to figure out how to get through and potentially out of this. So, we're going to start seeing a slight decrease in some things, but in general, the drive-thrus are going to remain strong. Delivery direct from restaurants is going to remain strong. There's a lot of operations that are continuing to see a lot of people dining in at home. So I think that's going to be something that's going to continue to be an issue. Now, obviously, and I'm going to share this slide here. Obviously, there's a lot of changes in what's been going on in the industry because of supply chain issues as well as labor issues. But, so table-centric segments will continue to improve because, as Filip said, people love going out and having that engagement. But it's going to still continue to struggle, partly because of restrictions, partly because of, I think, people's own anxieties about COVID and the pandemic and things like that, but also because they've learned how to start eating at home and dining at home, but out simultaneously. So I think that there's also this kind of understanding of how they can engage with restaurants differently. But things will continue to improve, but perhaps not return to pre-pandemic levels for a while. And so because of this shift in the way that consumers are engaging with restaurants, what you're seeing is smaller footprints of these stores and realizing, okay, we can do a lot more takeout, we can do a lot more to go. And so they don't need to have that same physical footprint, right? And having that same overhead to run and operate. So what we're seeing is increased convenience options to go, pick up, drive through, all of those things, and then smaller dine-in spaces, because what's the point if you don't need to? And if you can make it fully digital or something like that, You just have to pay the staff and staff up for the production of items rather than the full service component of it. And actually, if you look at some of the places now that can pivot easily that way, a lot of them have gone that way. So if you look at Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks and a lot of Chipotle's, what they've done is they've just asked guests to order online and just go through drive-thrus and pickups that way. So it's been a lot more efficient in that way. And then menu trends. Restaurants on average, about 60% shrank their menus. And when they did, it was about 10% overall. Areas that shrank the most, appetizers really saw a reduction, desserts, alcoholic beverages. And this isn't really surprising when you think about desserts, alcoholic beverages, and breakfast items. When you look at how many people are dining from home now, desserts don't really travel super well. Alcoholic beverages and beverages in general, you can make at home for a lot less. And breakfast items are generally a commuter item. So if you're not commuting anywhere, there's nothing to get. But other things, foods with temperature sensitive preparations like scallops and steaks kind of saw a decline in that stuff. Menu winners, noodles. When there's a pandemic, everyone loves a carb. So that was a big part of it, I think, that everybody really leaned into. And also that consciousness of what the environment is going through and social change. So a lot of plant-based items, Beyond and Impossible proteins and things like that. The other thing that they thought was really interesting, I'd love to highlight for everyone, is future menu trends. Spices, global spices are really big, but everyone's really leaning into spicy food. Hot honey, hot mustard, tajin, the kind of chili lime spice from Central and South America, and other of those menu items you're going to start seeing a lot. So since 2020, furikake, which is not spicy, but a Japanese spice, has gone up 70% in menus across the US. Tajin and hot mustards will continue to grow through 2022. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to pass it back to Andrea about food.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, one more question actually from me is, so given these trends, how does that affect kind of the profitability of restaurants? Because like, for instance, alcohol is highly profitable, right? And, if that kind of is that percentage kind of is going down, how are restaurants surviving?
I think being really smart about how they pivot their menus, right? So about focusing down that menu, it's about cutting some of the fat that was not necessary and then really looking closely at their margins, particularly as the supply chain continues to struggle. We've seen chicken wings increase threefold in the last couple of years because everybody loves chicken wings suddenly. So learning how to pivot and learning how to cook from scratch and be really intelligent about multi-uses for their ingredients is going to be really pivotal in all of this. But I also think, really saying to consumers, listen, this is the cost of life now, sorry, and maybe increasing their prices. Some early research from this year said that there's a little bit more elasticity when it comes to customers understanding what the industry is going through.
Yeah, that's great. So very informative. Thank you so much. So we are at time, I believe. So I want to thank everyone for joining us in today's panel. Thank you to our panelists. I'm Andrea Stokes. Thank you so much. I'm very, very happy to be able to